They tell you that being a royal guard isn't about heroics. It's about stillness. It's about becoming a piece of the furniture, a statue with a pulse. You stand there in that heavy wool coat, the bearskin hat pressing down on your skull like a sleeping animal, and you stare straight ahead. You don't blink. You don't smile. You don't see the 1,000 cameras flashing in your face. But you do see. You see everything. And on a wet Tuesday in November, I saw a ghost. The rain had been falling since 4 in the morning. Not the polite English drizzle they put on postcards, but a mean sideways sleet that stung your cheeks and found every gap in your uniform. I've been on duty since 6, standing at my post by the Clarence House gate. My feet were numb. My breath came out in little white clouds that fogged the inside of my bearskin when I exhaled too hard. The tourists were thin today. A few brave Japanese families with clear umbrellas. A school group from Manchester, shivering and complaining. A man in a business suit who kept checking his watch, waiting for the changing of the guard like it was a train he was late for. I stood there, eyes forward, spine locked. My name is Private James Harker, Coldstream Guards. 3 years in. My father was a guard before me. His father was a soldier, though not a guard. We're a family of quiet men who stand very still. The crowd moved like a slow river. Faces came and went. A child dropped an ice cream cone. Who buys an ice cream in November? And her mother scolded her in French. 2 American teenagers tried to make me laugh by dancing. They failed. I've seen it all. The finger snapping, the waving, the people who lean in close and whisper, "Are you real?" I am real. I'm just very good at pretending I am not. 3. Build tension. It started with a sound. Not a shout, not a scream, but a low, persistent humming. It came from the far end of the mall, where the crowd was thicker, near the Victoria Memorial. The tourists began to turn their heads. The hum grew into a chant. I couldn't make out the words at first, just the rhythm. A protest. There's always a protest these days. Climate change, housing costs, pensions, the price of milk. London is a city that loves a good grievance. My training kicked in. Don't move. Don't react. The police will handle it. My job is to guard this gate, not to police the opinions of the public. The chant got louder. Words now. No more cuts. No more lies. A group of about 40 people, maybe 50, carrying cardboard signs and wearing rain-soaked jackets. They stopped about 50 meters from my post, right on the edge of the permitted protest zone. A woman at the front had a megaphone. Her voice was hoarse, but powerful. Who feeds the rich? We do. Who pays the tax? We do. The tourists backed away, pulling out their phones. A few looked nervous. Most looked thrilled. This was better than the changing of the guard. This was real London. I kept my eyes fixed on the middle distance, but my ears were working. The protest was loud, but not violent. No vates, no smoke bombs. Just words and rain. Standard stuff. Then, the woman with the megaphone stepped forward. She was smaller than I'd expected, wrapped in a heavy green coat, a knitted hat pulled down over her ears. Brown hair wet and stringy. She looked cold. She looked tired. She looked angry. "We want to see them," she shouted into the megaphone. "We want to see the people who sleep in gold while we sleep in doorways." A few people cheered. The police moved in, forming a loose line between the protesters and the gate. One officer, a sergeant I recognized named Miller, held up a hand. "Stay behind the line, please." The woman ignored him. She took another step forward, then another, and then she looked at me. Her eyes were the color of muddy puddles, brown with flecks of green. Something flickered in them. Recognition? No, that's impossible. I'm a face in a crowd. I'm furniture. But she stopped walking. The megaphone lowered to her side. The chant behind her continued, but she had gone quiet. She was staring at me. Not the way tourists stare, trying to break me. The way you stare at a photograph from a long time ago. A cold feeling slid down my spine that had nothing to do with the November rain. For climax, I knew that face. Not the face she has now. The sharp cheekbones, the dark circles under her eyes, the thin line of her mouth. The face I remembered was rounder, softer, maybe 10 years younger. The face of a girl on a pier in Blackpool, screaming for help. My stomach turned over. Her name came back to me like a wave hitting a seawall. Lily. Lily something. No, Lily Brennan. I'd never forgotten the name because I'd written it in my report. Assisted female juvenile, age approximately 14, from drowning at North Pier, Blackpool. Subject identified as Lily Brennan of Blackpool. Same as me. Same town. Same shitty estate. Same cold water. I was 17 then. Not a soldier. Just a kid with a part-time job at the arcade and a stupid habit of walking the pier after my shift, listening to the waves. It was February. Freezing. The sea was the color of iron. I heard the splash before I heard the scream. A group of kids messing around, leaning over the railing. One of them went in. Lily. I didn't think. I threw off my jacket and jumped. The water was so cold it felt like fire. I couldn't see anything at first, just bubbles and darkness. Then I felt her arm. I grabbed it and pulled. She fought me. Drowning people always fight. They don't know any better. I got my arm around her chest and kicked for the surface. A fisherman pulled us both up with a rope ladder. She was blue, not breathing. I did CPR until the ambulance came. They said later that if I'd been 30 seconds slower, she'd be dead. I never saw her again. Her family moved away, or maybe she did. I joined the army. I forgot about her. You forget a lot of things when you sign your life away. But here she was, standing 50 feet away from me, holding a megaphone, shouting at the palace. Shouting at me. Her mouth moved. I couldn't hear what she said over the chant, but I could read her lips. It's you. I broke the first rule of being a royal guard. I blinked. Twice. Then I swallowed. She took another step forward. The police sergeant put a hand on her shoulder. Ma'am, you need to step back. She shrugged him off. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me. James, she said. Not into the megaphone. Just her voice, small and raw. James Harker. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My jaw was locked. My hands are frozen to the stock of my rifle. Every instinct told me to stand still, to be the statue, to pretend I didn't hear. But my heart was pounding so hard, I thought my ribs might crack. The crowd noticed. The tourists lowered their phones. The chanting behind Lily faltered as her fellow protesters realized their leader had gone quiet. A woman with pink hair said, Lils? You okay? Lily didn't answer. She just stood there, rain running down her face, staring at me like I was the ghost. And then she started to cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just a few tears that mixed with the rain on her cheeks. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. A small, human gesture that cut through everything. The uniform, the palace, the protest, the whole ridiculous theater of it. You don't remember me, she whispered. But I did. 5. Resolution, I don't know how long we stood there. 10 seconds. A minute. Time does strange things when you're standing still. The rain kept falling. The police sergeant looked confused. A tourist with a big zoom lens took a photograph that would probably end up on some weird corner of the internet. Then, Lily turned around. She walked back to her group. She picked up the megaphone. Her voice was steadier now, but quieter. Let's go, she said. We're done here. The protesters looked at each other, confused. But they followed her. They always follow the leader. They moved down the mall, past the palace, toward Trafalgar Square. The chant started up again, but it sounded tired now. Like a song everyone had forgotten the words to. The police relaxed. Sergeant Miller gave me a quick glance, a question in his eyes, but I gave him nothing. I was a statue again. But inside, I was 17 years old, standing on a pier in Blackpool, watching a girl turn blue. 6. Ending line. They say a royal guard must never break character, must never show emotion, must never let the world see the man inside the uniform. But here's the thing about standing so still for so long. You learn that the world is full of people you've saved and forgotten, and the only difference between you and them is a few seconds of cold water and a lifetime of pretending you don't recognize each other. Part 2 document. The second day won. Hook, she came back the next day. I wasn't surprised. I'd lain awake in the barracks all night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the snoring of the other men, and I'd known she would come back. Some debts are too heavy to walk away from. 2. Set up the rain had stopped. Wednesday morning was pale and cold, with a sky the color of old dishwater. The tourists were back in force. A cruise ship must have docked because suddenly there were Americans everywhere, wearing plastic ponchos and asking where the royal bathrooms were. I was at the same post. Clarence House gate. Same rifle. Same boots. Same heavy coat that smelled like wet wool and history. My shift started at 8, and by 8:15, I'd already counted 12 marriage proposals, 3 marriage proposals declined, and 1 small dog that tried to lift its leg on my boot. The owner was mortified. I was not. It happens more than you'd think. I kept my eyes forward, but I was waiting, listening for the hum of the megaphone, watching the far end of the mall. At 9 o'clock exactly, she appeared. No megaphone today. No crowd. No cardboard signs. Just Lily Brennan, walking alone, her hands in the pockets of that same green coat. Her hair was dry this time, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked younger in the pale light, or maybe just less angry. She stopped about 10 meters away. The tourists flowed around her like water around a stone. She didn't chant. She didn't shout. She just stood there, looking at me. A man with a selfie stick bumped into her. "Sorry, love," he said, and kept walking. She didn't move. 3. Build tension. My heart started doing that thing again. The pounding. The heat in my chest. I forced myself to breathe slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way they teach you in basic training. The way you stay calm when someone is shooting at you. She took a step closer. Then another. The police noticed. A young officer I didn't recognize started to move toward her. I wanted to tell him to stop. I couldn't. I was a statue. "It's okay," Lily said to the officer. "I'm not here to cause trouble." The officer hesitated. He looked at me. I gave him nothing. "Statue." Lily took another step. She was 5 meters away now, close enough that I could see the small scar above her left eyebrow. A scar I'd never noticed before. Had it been there when she was 14? Had I just not seen it because I was too busy trying to keep her alive? "I brought you something," she said. She reached into her coat pocket. The officer tensed. I tensed. For a split second, the whole world held its breath. She pulled out a thermos. A blue thermos, chipped at the bottom, with a faded sticker of a cartoon whale on the side. "Tea," she said. "It's cold out. I thought you might want some." I didn't laugh because I couldn't. But inside I was laughing. The absurdity of it. A protester offering tea to a royal guard. This wasn't in the training manual. "I know you can't take it," she said. "I know you can't move." She stopped, swallowed. "I just wanted to say thank you. Properly. Not with a megaphone." The officer looked at me again. I still gave him nothing. But I shifted my weight just slightly from my left foot to my right. A tiny movement. Almost nothing. But Lily saw it. She smiled. A real smile. The first one I'd ever seen on her face. "For climax, you do remember," she said. Not a question. A statement. I said nothing. I couldn't. But I blinked. Once. Slow. She sat down on the wet pavement. Right there in front of the gate, in front of the tourists and the police and the palace. She sat cross-legged on the cold ground, like a child at story time. She placed the thermos beside her. "I looked you up," she said. "After yesterday. I went home and I typed your name into the internet. Found an old news article from the Blackpool Gazette. Teenager saves girl from drowning. There was a picture. You look so young. So scared." She pulled her knees up to her chest. "I've been thinking about you for 10 years, James Harker. Not every day, not even every year, but sometimes, on bad nights, when I couldn't sleep, I'd think about the boy who jumped into the freezing water for a stranger. A tourist stopped to take a picture of her. She ignored him. I wanted to find you. I tried once. About 5 years ago. I went back to Blackpool, to the arcade where you used to work. It was a vape shop. No one knew where you'd gone." Her voice cracked. "And then, yesterday, I'm standing there with my megaphone, screaming about the rich and the poor, and I look up, and there you are, in that stupid hat, holding that stupid gun. And I thought this can't be the same person. The boy who saved my life, standing guard for the people who ruined it." She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her coat. "But it is you, isn't it?" I didn't move. I couldn't. But something changed in my face. A softening around the eyes. The smallest possible shift. She saw it. "I'm not angry at you," she said quickly. "I'm not. I'm angry at the world. At the system. At the fact that I work 60 hours a week, and I can't afford a deposit on a flat, And you stand here in a fancy uniform protecting a building full of people who've never washed a dish in their lives. That's what I'm angry at. She picked up the thermos, held it in both hands like it was something sacred. But I'm not angry at you. I could never be angry at you. You saved my life. The crowd had grown quiet. Even the Americans had stopped asking about bathrooms. They were watching this strange woman sitting on the wet ground talking to a statue. And then I did something I had never done before in 3 years of service. I moved. 5. Resolution, it was barely a movement. Just a slight turn of my head. An inch to the left. Enough that my eyes met hers directly. Not through the side of my vision. Directly. Her breath caught. "You're not supposed to do that," she whispered. No, I wasn't. But I did anyway. I held her gaze for 3 seconds. 4. 5. Long enough for her to understand. Long enough for her to see that the boy from Blackpool was still in here somewhere, buried under the wool and the brass and the training. Then I turned my head back. Eyes forward. Statue again. Lily stood up. She brushed off the back of her coat. She picked up the thermos. "I'll leave this here," she said. "Someone will take it, or it'll get thrown away." "That's fine." She took a step back. Then another. "I just wanted you to know," she said, "that I didn't waste it. The life you saved. I'm a youth worker now. I work with kids in care. Kids like me. Kids who fall into the water, and no one jumps in after them." She paused. "I jump in. Every day. Because you showed me that someone would." The crowd started clapping. Not for me. For her. A few people had heard what she said. A few people understood. The applause rippled through the tourists like a wave. Lily looked embarrassed. She ducked her head and walked away quickly, disappearing into the crowd near the mall. The police officer picked up the thermos. He looked at it, then at me, then at the thermos again. He shrugged and put on a bench. 6. Ending line an hour later, my shift ended. I walked back to the barracks, took off my uniform, and sat on my bunk for a long time. I didn't drink the tea. It was cold by then, and someone had probably thrown it away. But I thought about what she'd said, about jumping in, about showing someone that someone would. And I realized something I'd never understood before. You don't save someone just once. You save them every day after, every time they choose to keep living, every time they pass it on. The water is always cold, but you jump in anyway, because that's the only thing that makes the cold worth standing in. Part 3 document. The third day 1. Hook the third day, she brought flowers. Not roses or lilies or anything fancy. Just a small bunch of yellow chrysanthemums wrapped in brown paper, the kind you buy at a petrol station for £5. They were drooping a little, wet from the rain that had started again overnight. 2. Setup Thursday was gray and miserable. The kind of London day that makes you understand why the British invented tea and regret and sarcasm. The tourists were thinner again. A few hardy souls with umbrellas and expensive cameras. A man selling umbrellas from a cart. A woman walking 3 small dogs that all looked like the same dog copied and pasted. I was at a different post today. The main gate of Buckingham Palace. The big one. The one with the gold leaf and the tourists and the constant, endless staring. It's a more visible position, which means more pressure. No blinking. No shifting. No turning your head for anyone. I saw her coming from 100 meters away. The green coat. The ponytail. The way she walked. Not like a protester anymore. Not angry and purposeful, but like someone who wasn't quite sure where she was going. She was alone again. 3. Build tension. The police recognized her from the day before. Sergeant Miller was on duty, the same one from the first day. He stepped forward, hand raised. "Miss," he said, "you can't approach the gate. You know that." She stopped. "I know. What are you doing here?" She held up the flowers. "I just want to leave these. That's all. I'm not going to shout. I'm not going to cause trouble." Miller looked at the flowers. He looked at me. He sighed. "Leave them on the bench," he said. "Then move along." She nodded. She walked to the bench, the same bench where the thermos had been left the day before, and placed the flowers carefully on the wet wood. Then she turned and looked at me. The distance was greater today, 20 meters at least, but I could still see her face, still see the scar above her eyebrow, still see the exhaustion and the hope and the strange, quiet gratitude. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, hands in her pockets, rain soaking her shoulders. And then she did something unexpected. She saluted. Not a military salute. Nothing crisp or formal. Just a clumsy, heartfelt raising of her hand to her forehead, like a child playing soldier. It was almost funny, almost sad, almost everything. For climax, I couldn't salute back. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything except stand there, holding my rifle, wearing my uniform, being the statue they trained me to be. But I thought about my father. He was a guard for 22 years. He used to tell me that the hardest part of the job wasn't the cold or the boredom or the tourists who poked you with selfie sticks. The hardest part, he said, was the moments when you wanted to be human. You'll see things, he told me, the night before my first shift. You'll see a child get lost and cry for their mother. You'll see an old man collapse from a heart attack. You'll see a woman get down on one knee and propose to her girlfriend, and she'll look at you for approval, and you won't be able to give it. You'll see joy and grief and love and fear, and you won't be able to react to any of it. That's the job. That's the sacrifice. I never understood what he meant until now. Lily lowered her hand. She smiled again, that small, sad smile. Then she turned and walked away, her footsteps splashing in the puddles. A tourist asked me for directions. I didn't answer. A child waved at me. I didn't wave back. The rain kept falling. The palace kept standing. The world kept turning. But I kept seeing her face. The girl in the water. The woman with the flowers. The same person split in two by 10 years and a single moment. 5. Resolution. At the end of my shift, I did something I'd never done before. I walked to the bench. The flowers were still there, soaked and wilted, the brown paper dissolving in the rain. I picked them up. The other guards were already walking back to the barracks. One of them, a lad named Davies, looked at me funny. You taking those, Harker? Yeah, I said. They're for my mom. Davies shrugged. Fair enough. I carried the flowers back to the barracks. I put them in a plastic cup of water on my bedside table. They looked ridiculous there, next to my boots and my shaving kit and the photograph of my father in his own uniform. That night, I wrote a letter. Dear Lily, I remember the water. I remember how cold it was. I remember your hand slipping out of mine twice before I got a good grip. I remember the sound you made when you started breathing again, a cough, then a gasp, then a scream. I remember thinking, she's going to be okay. I didn't know then that okay is a moving target. That okay today is not okay tomorrow. That okay is something you have to fight for every single day. You said you'd jump in for the kids, for the ones like you. I believe you. I've seen your face in the crowd every day for 3 years, and I never knew it until now. You've been here the whole time. Not you exactly, but people like you. The ones who are drowning. The ones who need someone to jump in. I can't jump in anymore. I'm a statue now, but I'm glad you're out there doing it for me. Thank you for the tea. Thank you for the flowers. Thank you for not wasting it. James I didn't have her address. I didn't know where she lived or worked or protested. So I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I told myself I'd find her someday. Maybe after my shift. Maybe next week. Maybe next year. I never did.